Hey guys, Montel here, and thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Free Thinking with Montel. We are living in a time right now where so many people in this country are experiencing true mental health issues, some of which have been driving people to commit that ultimate act. And unfortunately, a lot of our veterans are mired in not only PTSD from combat situations, but mired in PTSD from transitioning from military life to civilian life. Some of them are mired in mental health issues dealing with COVID right now, feeling as if they're alone and have no one to talk to. And there's so many of our first responders, so many of our police officers, so many people who are on the front lines of this battle of COVID that will wake up tomorrow and recognize that our next pandemic about to hit this country and take this country harder than we've ever imagined will be a pandemic of mental health issues. And those mental health issues, unfortunately, some people will attempt to solve them in what I think is not only say the ultimate way, but in a way that literally makes them make their ultimate sacrifice of taking their own life. And we need more people out there in the front lines right now trying to help as many of us as we possibly can. And our guest today is one of those people. She's a Navy veteran who's an active member of the Veterans Mental Health Advisory Council in Washington, D.C., Veterans Affairs Medical Center. She's a suicide intervention instructor and a founder of Restore Life, which she started in 2018 after experiencing her own mental health challenges stemming from her time serving in the Navy during Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom War. Her and her team have intervened in hundreds of suicide attempts throughout the D.C. metropolitan area. She's worked closely with and trained the NFL Players Association, the DC VA Medical Center staff for veterans, adolescents, mental health providers, American University Police Department, Metro Police Department, Maryland Sheriff Department officials, and many, many more. Porsche Williams, thanks so much for being a part of Free Thinking with Montel today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's like almost tough to know where to start with you, but I want to back up for a minute and start with a little bit of your history. You are, if I call you a military brat, I don't mean it to say it in any harm, but your father and your stepfather both served, right? You had a father who served in what, the Navy? Or no, your father served in the Air Force and your stepfather served in the Army, and then you enlisted in the Navy back in 2008. Is that right?
Dare to be different. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but from your childhood upbringing, was that something that you had thought about most of your growing up years?
No, I had no clue I would end up in the military. I landed there because I was in college and happened to have gotten pregnant. And I saw it as a way to be able to provide for my son without having to worry about too much else. The military kind of covers everything. So,
Sure. Yeah, so you served the country for 4 years in deployments off of the coast of Afghanistan, rescue missions. You served Libya liberation campaigns and other Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom operations. Did you not?
yes, I did.
Involved in mobilizations in both of those in theater.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I looked at some of your background. It says that you took air and surface warfare training while deployed, which qualified you to become an enlisted aviation warfare specialist. You also were a volunteer firefighter serving on the in-post emergency response team, and also a stretcher bearer for mass casualties. I mean, you literally received plenty of awards and accolades, and you've been honorably discharged. And
Sir.
it was that transition into civilian life that some of your own issues with mental health started to rise, did they not?
Yes, it did. It didn't really hit me until I got out of the military, the issues that I was having, because in the military we're so go on the go. Um, we were so distracted we didn't have that time to sit down and actually think and have that time to reflect on everything that we actually survived. And then once the world kind of slowed down and I didn't have to be on post by 6 or 7 a.m. and I didn't have to be at PT in the morning, and I actually had a chance to really sit down, everything began to to hit me. And that's where things got a little foggy.
A little funny. Let's try. I hate to take you back so
It's
you can recount some of those things that actually happened while you were in the service. But a lot of our female veterans are suffering right now today. A lot of them are suffering in silence, like yourself. You did so, and probably in the same way. A lot of them, some of them, have been, sexually assaulted and been the victims of sexual abuse while on active duty, and then, like you said, forced to just tamp that down and get on with the mission at hand. And it's not until you have a moment to exhale
Mhm.
that all of a sudden you realize that you run out of breath, right?
Absolutely. I think it's important to also notice and recognize that it's not just the women that sustain military sexual trauma. A lot of our men sustain military sexual trauma as well, and they have a really hard time, more worse than us, speaking out about it. Um, and I learned that only recently in the last few years doing my work with the Mental Health Advisory Council. We will put on what is called the Military Sexual Trauma Summit every year at the Washington, D.C. VA. And there was this display, it's called the Clothesline Project. And victims of military sexual trauma will write on t-shirts messages that they want to get out. So whether it's something they wanted to say to the person that hurt them, or if they wanted to just give a message of hope to others that had been through it, and we would hang those shirts up in the atrium, and so many people would come through and get emotional. And I found more men than women that will break down right there because they had never said anything about it and held on to it for so long. Military sexual trauma is an issue, period.
And it's something that people, I just don't think that the general population stop for 1 second to even consider. But we've got to recognize that the same predators that exist in our society are the same predators that enlist or serve in our military. And, we can turn a blind eye to it all we want, but they are still there and they are still predators while they are there, correct?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about what you went through while on active duty.
My PTSD came from two things. It came from being exposed to war and dead bodies. Again, I was a stretcher bearer, so um, I bagged up dead bodies, and we had quite a few of them. Yeah, and then the other part of it came from the military sexual trauma. I was raped by somebody that was supposed to watch over me, somebody I considered a brother. I was thinking that I was allowing him to crash at my spot on the couch because he had been drinking too much and I didn't want him to drive all the way back across the bridge where he had lived. And that turned into a whole nother situation out of my sleep. I reported it to my command and they swept it under the rug and they put me off of the ship and I ended up going to shore duty for a little bit because as a result of the rape, I was impregnated. Langley Air Force Base did a DNC. They took the baby and um, I got transferred and put on the USS Enterprise from there. And then that's where I went through the combat missions and things of that sort. And I seen a whole lot of things, not so pleasant. And I did what I had to do in service of my country.
Do they blame you for the assault in some ways? I mean, or they were more or less trying to just avoid the confrontation and avoid all of the legal battle that would have ensued?
Yes, they were more so standoffish. And like I said, they just threw it under the rug.
And you had to deal with that basically, on your own, and then still keep up that good face to complete the mission.
It's what we call military bearing. That's one of the biggest things when it comes to veterans. Military bearing. We can be going through anything in our minds as long as it doesn't show on our face. That's the first thing that we're taught and trained on in boot camp.
So you went ahead and how much longer did you serve in the military after this incident took place?
The incident took place in 2010. I got out in 2012.
2012. You got out and you tried to transition to civilian life by
I
getting
did.
yourself in college, right? Prince George's College, community college in Maryland. um, and you started working for the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, but you continually dealt with the memories, right?
It was the memories, the nightmares, the cold sweats. I found out that I had PTSD in 2012. I had went to outing and they had fireworks there, and the fireworks did not feel the same as they used to. I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. I can remember I was wearing 3-inch heels. And I was walking up and I saw the fireworks going off. And I was like, wow, fireworks. I love fireworks. And my significant other at the time, I guess he felt like he was surprising me. And so it was supposed to be a nice date. And as I began to hear the ones that go, shoo, boom, those ones, I was like, wait a minute. And so I started backing up, but he's steady walking forward. He turns around and looks at me. I'm unable to communicate. I turn around in 3-inch heels and full-fledged run straight back to the car. It was like maybe like a half a mile. I ran 6 months pregnant, running for my life, petrified. I got in the car and I cried. I cried so hard. And he was like, what's wrong? And I couldn't explain it. I just kept crying. I probably shut down for maybe like a day or two after that. And then I went to the VA, and that's where they told me I had post-traumatic stress disorder. That's when I was first diagnosed.
And then you started working very diligently at trying to heal yourself, correct?
Not initially, Montel. I felt like I was strong enough to get through it on my own. I felt like, I'm a strong woman, and the women in our family, have to continue on even when we don't feel like it. Or, I felt like I could get through it on my own. I don't need to talk to anybody else because that's what's portrayed in our communities. Don't tell folks your business. Keep your business in-house. Stay to yourself. And I tried that. I had a daughter in 2012, in November of 2012. So postpartum depression in combination with military sexual trauma in combination with post-traumatic stress disorder really took a toll on me. And I was in a relationship for 8 years, and that relationship was my everything. However, it was incredibly toxic, emotional and physically abusive. And once I had learned that he was cheating on me with my best friend, that's when my downward spiral began. I felt like I couldn't hold it anymore. And I was just tired. I was tired of fighting and just waking up every day depressed and crying and not understanding. I was tired of the nightmares. I was just tired of everything. I can remember leading up to that, to my suicide attempt in 2017. I reached out to 4 people. I reached out to my mom. I reached out to my dad. I reached out to my sister. And then I reached out to an actual VA psychiatrist. And I was telling her what I was experiencing. And I was telling her how tired I was. And I was telling her how I didn't want to go on anymore. And her solution was to up my meds and send me out the door.
Hmm.
And so when I got home, I said, okay, well, I'll fix you. And I can remember looking at my daughter. She was running around the house at the time. I can remember looking at my daughter and saying to myself, she'll be fine. There was half-eaten bags of food all over my bed and things of that sort. The people close to me saw the signs, but they did not know that's what they were seeing. But everybody else outside of that, every time they would look at me and say, "Hey, Portia, how you doing?" I would return, "I'm fine. How are you?" Right? It's
Mhm.
the thing that we tend to do. But I was not fine, and I was tired, and I was done. And I took a handful of those sleeping pills that she had prescribed me, hoping and praying and knowing that I wasn't going to wake up. And I was at peace with knowing that I wasn't going to wake up.
What saved you?
I woke up. And when I woke up, I was very sick, very, very sick. They had to pump my stomach and do all of these things. And they put me into the psych ward for about 2 weeks. And for the first time in my life, I was okay. I was not okay, and it was okay. I had a lot of stigma based around psych wards. It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. Everybody in there was going through something. It wasn't like what we see on TV. And again, for the first time, I was not okay, and it was okay. I was around a group of veterans that were very supportive, and loving and caring and very funny. I actually had a lot of fun in the psych ward, just being able to just be my pure self.
You said that, you made a very interesting quote. My life didn't begin until it almost ended or until it ended.
My
That's
God,
that, right?
yes. Yes. Um, it was the most important point in my life. A lot of people go through things in life and things get really hard and they say, I'm struggling and I'm suffering and I'm tired and I get it. I get it. But those things made me what I am today. Right. I don't feel like my life began until that point. That's when I began to take care of myself. That's when I began to take mental health seriously. That's when I began to work and heal me so that I can reach back and show everybody else the way to get here. That's where that passion was born.
And that passion was born and turned into you creating Restore Life Global, right? In 2018. Tell me a little bit about that.
It was amazing. I did 2.5 years of therapy. My psychologist, Dr. Elizabeth Carlin at the Washington D.C. VA Medical Center. My God, she was so instrumental in where I am today. Um, she helped me and built me up. Her and the peer support specialist, Yvonne and Eric and Maurice. They were just so amazing in the support that they gave. So when I turned around and said to them, "Hey, listen, I want to be a part of the change that I want to see because my friends, my shipmates, my aunts just completed suicide. How can I be a part of this change? Because I can't wait for anybody else to do this." That led to Miss Patricia Craig, the chairperson of the Mental Health Advisory Council. She took me up under her wing. She sent me to go get trained. I got trained by 2 FBI agents on suicide intervention courses at the course called Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. The first night of that course, Montel, I had actually got a suicide intervention. Somebody had reached out to me, and it was everything that they had taught me in class. And so I was like, wait a minute, this is what they told me about. And so I started going through the steps that I learned in class earlier that day. And that was my first life that I saved. From there, I went back and showed my instructors, like, "Hey, look what I did." And they said, "Portia, you're really good at this. Why don't you teach?" And I said, "That's not a bad idea." And me and Miss Pat worked together to get into a training to become instructors. And the rest has been history. We have been training and teaching and speaking all over the country. There's one thing to have education on suicide intervention and education on, mental health, but it's another thing to live with it and
To
really be able
do
to
something.
understand and have compassion when people are having those thoughts. I can say that I understand where you are, but let me help you to another choice. Let's keep you safe for now. And
Absolutely.
it's changed my life.
And so now, I mean, literally, your resume speaks of saving hundreds and hundreds of lives, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
that's not only through your training programs, but also from direct calls.
Direct, yep. I've saved individually, I have saved 206 lives to date around the region. And many more than that, I'm sure, because I hear a lot. Portia, hearing you speak saved my life. Hearing your story helped me to continue, keep pushing, and it's one of the most gratifying things one could ever hear.
But now I mean, what do you think about the current state of America? I mean, and I say this because, I think that there is less focus being placed on the devastation of COVID, not just the respiratory illness COVID, but all of its sociological, social and psychological impact. I mean, we have people who literally are horrified at the fact that they've had to, hunker down at home. They hate being alone. We have people who act out every day. I mean, I just saw it. I live in Miami, and you just saw it, a week ago, and we see it right now down here through what people are calling spring breaks. People who are coming in, but these people are coming in lashing out at others and lashing out because they have been so hunkered down and told that they can't do. Now all of a sudden they seek that one little moment of freedom that really isn't freedom because it's harmful behavior for themselves.
Mhm.
I mean, what do you think of what's going on in this nation that, I mean, and then, today you start the George Floyd trial, and, there's going to be so many people who will be mired in the depression of watching that. I mean, I found myself
It's
earlier
traumatic.
today
It's traumatic.
caught. looking at the news, and and unfortunately, the news in this country is not uplifting at all. All day long, you are inundated with nothing but
Mhm.
negative information that doesn't just explain a story, but negative information that pulls at every little aspect of your being.
Mhm.
And there are people who are alone who don't understand how to deal with the fact that they're being pulled. I mean, you look at, we've got, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 30% of this country who are mired in nothing but false information
Mhm.
and look forward to hearing more false information because it feeds something inside of them that they're missing.
Mhm.
How do we, I mean, that's a big question that I just throw
Yeah.
that at you, but what do you think?
So where I'm standing from my viewpoint, in 2017 and 18, there were about 47 to 48,000 suicides, right, in this country. And that was leaving about 16 million people with thoughts of suicide. In 2020, all of the statistics are not back yet. However, the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention has already put out there in 2020, over 10% of our nation were having thoughts of suicide, reported having thoughts of suicide. That's over 33 million people having thoughts of suicide. It is scary. It's scary. Um, and that's why I'm going as hard as I'm going about this topic, and all of the things that contribute to it. I think that it's best. One thing that I do, for self care, I don't watch the news. I do not. It drives my mom crazy. My mom's like, Portia, you need to stay.
Mm.
No, no, I don't. No, I don't. I'm just fine where I am. I have to protect my mental health of the things that I ingest because of what I do. I have to keep myself well in order to be able to continue doing the work that is that I'm doing. Um, it's a scary time right now. The best thing that we can do for ourselves in this moment as we're transitioning through this, um, one, it's okay not to be okay. So if you need help, reach out. There are so many organizations that has help, and can help you cope with dealing during this time, to get trained, right? So one of the things when it comes to suicide, people tend to reach out to the people closest to them. They don't say, "Oh, I'm having thoughts of suicide. Let me go to the doctor today." That's not really how that works. They talk to their best friends, they talk to their coworkers, they talk to their parents, their siblings, and things like that. So the more people that are knowledgeable on how to have that conversation, the better that the outcome will be, and the more reduced there will be a reduction in actual suicides. The more people that can intervene. A lot of time people's attitudes towards suicide will push someone over the edge, right? So if I had on a name tag and it says, "Hi, my name is Portia and I don't believe in suicide," would you want to talk to me?
Right.
You see what I'm
Well,
saying? So just
absolutely.
being there.
But unfortunately, we seem to be working as hard as we can to not be there for others. We are so divided as a nation. I'm not trying to be, Nikki Downer here. I'm just telling you the attitudes of so many people. I recounted a story earlier today. My wife was just out trying to walk our puppy down a sidewalk, and a man who was just as angry as he could be, literally lashed out because she just said, "Excuse me." We seem to be at a place right now where we're just the most confrontational race of people on the planet. I'm talking about Americans.
Mhm.
Everything is a confrontation. Nothing is, a cooperation or trying to find a resolution. It's all about how much more we can divide.
It's
How do we overcome this?
That's a good question. That's a big question, and I don't think that that's a question that I can give an answer to. Um, right now. I think that everybody's mental health is exacerbated. And just an understanding that when I see someone lashing out, I see hurt, I see unresolved pain, I see mental health trauma, and it's everybody's trauma is being pulled outward. no animal living in captivity, animal or human living in captivity, is going to be hunky dory and excited all the time, you know? And it's the same with us, this isolation, all of these things. And then you have more than that. You have people that catch. I had a situation where a wife had caught COVID, gave it to her husband, and then her husband ended up passing away, and they had a newborn baby. And
Mm.
so she feels grief stricken, thinking that she killed her husband. And it's so many more stories like that. So many deaths are occurring as a result of. And again, this is just a lot of trauma. The only way that I can see, excuse me, through this portion is to be able to get into therapy and to do the things that reflect self-care and unplugging from TVs and unplugging from your phone and being present in the moment and doing things that you may haven't done in a while. You may not have done in a while. So like me and my daughter, we paint and we hula hoop and we play hopscotch and we just do a whole lot of different things to try to keep, our physical and mental health intact. Um, Having different outlets, right, is very important. Uh, because if you just continue to bottle up, you'll explode on someone that didn't even hurt you. And that seems like what happened with your wife. And I'm sorry that she had to encounter that. Just make sure that she does not internalize it as it was a her thing or something that she could have prevented and or done. Just know that it's a them thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way she kind of looked at it. But I think it angered her, and
Mhm.
I tried to help her understand that there's no reason to be angry over somebody who literally has issues themselves.
Yes.
And I think she got that very quickly, and she's moved on. But
Yeah.
you know, um, it's hard, when you go to a grocery store and you see the person in front of you, lash out at the person who's just trying to take their money from them. What is your problem? You want to say something to a person, then I don't want to then turn that into another instance, or just step back and you're quiet. But then you internalize all of that pain,
Hmm.
which can make you yourself
Hmm.
dig
Just
deeper.
energy transfers.
Yes. So, tell me a little bit more about your Restore Life organization. Tell me about what is Restore Life Global.
Restore Life Global. So we are a suicide intervention instruction company. We actually teach. There's a company called Living Works, and they have the applied suicide intervention skills training. And so we travel the country to teach that training. And again, it's one thing to know the signs of suicide, but what do you say when someone says, "Yes, I'm actually having thoughts"? A lot of people are afraid to ask directly about suicide because of the stigma, or what if they say yes, like this life is in my hands, and that's kind of scary. But what we do is we alleviate some of the fear, and we hope uh to teach you how to have that conversation. um and and not just how to have the conversation, how to also observe your own attitudes and beliefs about suicide and be able to control them during the intervention. And then we also give you a look into the person with thoughts mind to know where they are. It is an absolute amazing training, and it works. I've used the intervention model again 206 times. And that's why I wholeheartedly believed. I put down everything that I was doing to begin this business, because the more people that we can reach and that we can teach, we can reduce the number of suicides. And it's unfortunate because the numbers begin ages for suicide begin as low as 4 years old, and it goes all the way up till the ending of life, 90s, 100s, and things of that sort. So we just want to do everything that we can prevent that, so that we can continue moving forward, so that there can be a tomorrow, so that we can have better days, because better days are coming. They
Give,
are.
give us a website real quick that somebody can reach out to right now immediately if they wanted to get a hold of you or they wanted to get a hold of your organization.
RestoreLifeGlobal.com. RestoreLifeGlobal.com.
And again, you work all over the country.
We work all over the country. And another thing that I started doing, so one of the biggest things in 2020 was funding. Funding was an issue. And so I got tired of waiting, right? I got tired of waiting. And so I began baking and selling the best sweet potato pies in the DMV. These are my pies, right?
There you
Um,
go.
Uh,
Hold it up, hold it up, hold it up again, hold it up again. I want people to know they can get a pie. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. These are the best sweet potato pies. Unfortunately, right now we do not ship. However, they have been doing so amazing in this area. We got them into Z Burger, which is one of our restaurants here. We are getting them into Uncaged Chefs and a few other restaurants. And so all of the proceeds that we make from these pies goes towards suicide intervention training so that funding is not an issue. So we're baking pies and literally saving lives.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, look, we got some little bit more time left. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I'm gonna have people tune into this podcast. They really enjoy it and enjoy some of the takeaway tools that they can take away from you know the podcast. And so, if let's say right now, somebody's looking and watching us, and they've had some thoughts in their mind about just that's taking them to those dark, dark, dark places. Um, what kind of advice would you give them right this second? I mean, give them some tools or some things that maybe they could do right now while they're sitting at home in the quiet of their living room that they could just start thinking positively about to help flip that paradigm. I mean, I often think about and try to explain to people that as quickly and easily as it is that you can talk yourself into an abyss, you can talk yourself out of an abyss if you were to literally just apply some basic tools like stop for a second, sit on your couch, sit up straight, cut the TV off, no noise, take a deep breath, suck in some air, let it out, take a deep breath, suck in some air, let it out, do it again a third time. Then after you do
Mhm,
the third time, I want you to take that deep breath and hold that breath in. And while you're holding that breath in, close your eyes and think about one of those things that brought you so much joy in your life. I
mhm,
mean, I
mhm,
think back of being able to be present when when one of my children was born, or being present, or when I walked across the stage at the Naval Academy, got to throw my hat in the air after I received my diploma, or being involved in a very successful operation in the military and coming back and being acknowledged for that. Those are good things that happen. There's
mhm,
nothing wrong with having thoughts and memories of good things that have happened in your life
mhm,
and things that brought a smile to your face.
mhm,
And I think about those, and as you're thinking about those and you let that breath out,
mhm,
then daggone it, all of a sudden you just conspire yourself into a feeling of worth and a feeling of value.
mhm.
What do you say to people? I mean, what are some of those tools that they could use to help capture the value in their life?
Number one, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have thoughts. It's okay, right? It's what you do with those thoughts. When those thoughts become unchecked, they turn into behaviors, and those behaviors is what will lead you down a path to suicide. What I would say is two things. One, there's a grounding exercise that I like to use. I'll stop when I start either because I live with suicidal thoughts. Maybe like a few times a year, when things get really hard, the thoughts try to start flooding in. But through therapy, I've learned how to take away the power of the thoughts. I will stop and I will notice five things that I can see. Okay. And then I'll take the time to notice four things that I can touch physically with my hands. So my kneecap, my chair, my phone, and a computer. Okay. And then I'll do three things that I can hear, right? Two things that I can smell. Maybe I can smell my perfume and sweet potato pies.
Mhm.
And then one thing that I can taste, right? And that might have been the caramel frappuccino that I just had prior to getting on, right?
Mhm.
And so what that does is that gives your mind because we can only think one thought at a time. There's many thoughts, we can only think one at a time. And so it takes your mind out of that place that you're in and focus it on somewhere else. The second thing I would encourage is to go on psychologytoday.com. It's one of my favorite tools. And that's where you can find a therapist. All you have to do is type in your insurance type and your zip code, and it will give you therapists in your area. You email them and you can start therapy. Therapy is so important. I want to encourage and urge this. Venting to your friends is not therapy. Therapy is a science. Therapy is a science, and they teach you coping mechanisms and skills to be able to get through some of the hardest times of your life. I encourage it. Go to therapy. If you want to get someone that you closely identify with, that is possible. But please, and I feel like at the point that where we are, everybody needs therapy in one
Absolutely.
form or another.
I love the therapy that you just gave out. Again, it's 5 things that you can see,
Mhm.
4 things that you can, I mean,
Touch.
don't say touch, right? See, touch. Is that right?
Hmm.
3 things, and I forgot what the third one was. You can hear,
Hmm.
2 things that you can smell,
Hmm.
1 thing that you can taste.
Your five senses. Hmm.
You go through those 5 senses, and you go through that. That's literally, what is that? 20, almost 25 different. Or, yeah, no. Let's see. Five. That's 15 different things, 15 different thoughts in a row
Yep.
that will take you away from thinking about that suicide thought.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm. Yep.
I mean, I really, really, really like that. I think there's a lot of people who tune in today will probably say, wow, that's pretty impressive. And that's
Hmm.
also something that you can do just to help put yourself in a good mood.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. It's amazing. And that's something that I learned in therapy. So there you have it. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dr. Carlin.
Well, but I mean, that's the kind of thing that I think, and unfortunately, we live in a society where we want to have quick fixes. And, I
Yeah.
think a quick fix is something that can stop in and literally intervene and intervention. And it's knowing those 5 things that can help a person tonight while they're laying in bed by themselves.
Yep.
Or they, just shut that door after they walked outside, went to the grocery store, came back, and there's nobody inside but them. But
Yep.
they shut that door and they're sitting there by themselves. It opens you up to who you are, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. Or breathing techniques like 5 seconds in, 7 seconds out when you're doing deep breathing. Because when we're angry and or emotional and upset, we'll stop breathing, right? We'll start breathing less and less. And the more oxygen that you're depriving your brain of, the more irrational thoughts that will come. So what you want to do is just to breathe. It can slow down, like it'll stop tears. Like if you're crying mid cry, like you can start doing deep breathing and it will stop you from actually crying. And it works for so many different things. And so, just again, therapy. You learn and learning these different coping mechanisms.
I got to tell you something when you just said just breathing, my wife, every now and then, she's going to hate me for talking about her this way, but every now and then she has, migraines, and recently we've noticed that we actually you can go up online and buy these canisters of oxygen, and rather than her taking, over the counter, pain medication or over the counter, migraine medication,
Mhm.
she's found that she's has gotten such unbelievable relief, shut a migraine down almost in a heartbeat just by
Breathing.
bringing in some pure oxygen
It's
for
the
about
highest form
15
of
minutes.
self-care, Montel. The
Well, let me tell you something.
highest form of self-care is just to breathe.
I will tell you I agree because I've noticed myself, though I'm not a person who suffers from headaches, but every now and then, I like everyone have maudlin thoughts or have thoughts of, you know, and if I take a big shot of oxygen, it's like for me, cannabis is something that I've used and utilized, and I know that it helps me separate from some of my issues, but oxygen works just as good.
Mhm. Yep,
So yeah,
I
I
agree.
I really appreciate the fact that you've been able to give people some clues and some things that will help them get through their day. What else is going on with you right now?
So we between the pies and the suicide intervention. So not only do I do suicide interventions, I also speak. So I speak about suicide prevention and intervention quarterly with the Metropolitan Police Department, with American University. I do their crisis intervention trainings. I'm just kind of all over the place right now.
Mhm.
But we travel. So if you have more than 10 to 15 people in a group that wants to learn suicide intervention skills with any organization or anywhere, if you give us a call or reach out to me on my website, we will fly to you to facilitate the training. So that's what we've been doing. I'm on the way to LA in 2 weeks to go, get some pies out there. I'm working on getting my pies into restaurants so that we can have continued income coming in for the pie so that we can start to do the classes in the community for free more. But as of right now, we're training again organizations or anybody that wants to have this training and have enough people in a group for us to be able to train. But we've been traveling and doing a lot. So between the pies and the trainings, I've been booked.
And how the kids looking? What do the kids think about all the work that mommy's doing?
You know what? My niece recently, I'm actually getting ready to share it after I get off of here. I learned that for Women's Month, my niece did a dedication to me.
Mhm.
And it was so powerful. Success to me is not about how much money you have, but how many lives can you impact and touch. And to see these things is just absolutely amazing. My kids always tell me, how mommy's a superhero, how they're super proud of me. And my daughter wants to be just like me, down to the clothes that she wears. She wants to be me. It's amazing, though. It's gratifying. It's love.
Yes, and it's love what you do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's love is what you're sharing.
Yeah.
At a time when we have so many who don't even understand that all they share is hate.
Yeah.
So thank you for what you do, Portia. And I will tell you that you always have a home here at Free Thinking with Montel. You want to share some thoughts, you want to put on a tutorial for an hour. I'll let you come back and do that, just so that people understand that there is a place to reach out to for hope. I mean, I just that 5 minutes of the five things that people can do is
Yeah.
enough that will probably save someone's life today.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you've done.
And thank you for having me and being able to spread the word about the work that we're doing. Montel, I work tirelessly. Like I recently had to force a mental health day because I felt my exhaustion coming on from running so much. So I kind of had to shut it down for a couple of days just to give myself me time. But I'm working so hard because these numbers are not falling, they're rising. And I think about my aunts. I think about the mother who had to bury her 5 or 6 year old child because they took their lives from suicide. Social media has popularized it so much, and it is just this is this is my passion. I can talk about suicide straight out of my sleep. I will walk up in the airport and start a conversation about suicide. I will break it out anywhere because we have to get in those uncomfortable places and spaces in order to have that growth and that healing to occur. And so, I just thank you for the opportunity for me being able to come on and share what it is that we're doing because we want to continue doing it on a global scale. We've been invited once COVID clears up a little bit, we've been invited to India to go do some work there. So, we're working on that, but this is my it. This is my morning, noon, and night, my breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I'm with you. I spent some time in India recently. Well, not recently, about a year and a half ago.
Nice.
I suggest to you that if you do accept that invitation, go in the winter months because it is hot. I'm telling you, girlfriend, you want to know hot. You think it gets hot in DC? Psh, that's
You thinking,
nothing.
Montel, you don't know heat until you've been on an aircraft carrier in
Oh,
Afghanistan in full flight deck gear.
girlfriend, I've been there. You know what is that I spent almost 22 years myself in the military. My career spanned 22 years. I literally was in the Persian Gulf before it was vogue to be in the Persian Gulf, but I was
Were
out there.
you on the flight deck though,
I was
Montel?
on a flight that USS Kitty Hawk back in,
Hey,
hey, I was USS Kitty Hawk back in 1981, 82. We were the first battle group to literally post Vietnam War,
uh,
do a 90-day plus deployment. I did 180 days in the ocean.
ooh,
And then also, I'm the only talk show host in daytime television to actually go back into the Persian Gulf for a TV show. When my show started, I literally flew back into the Gulf when our Gulf wars were going on to take messages to our sailors and soldiers and Marines from their family members. I went to Afghanistan 4 years ago to visit our troops and flew all over there as a guest of General Petraeus's to send and spread some messages of motivation to our troops there. So I get that. I get the
I'm so
sand
happy.
blowing across the ocean 25 miles out. You wake up and you got sand in your bed and you're
In your ears.
in your ears and you're 3 stories down on the aircraft carrier. It's like, where did this sand come from?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I'll never forget. I was on the Kitty Hawk when we had one of our, unfortunately, one of our worst deck crashes in
Mhm.
peacetime, and I was literally working out in the weight room, which was one floor below the flight deck,
Mhm.
and then F8 went off the side and literally shot its afterburner back up through the door that was open in the gym, burned the roof, burned the ceiling. Yeah, so yeah, I remember. I get you. I'm with you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for continuing to serve even after your service. That means so much to us.
Absolutely, and that's something that, again, I know we spoke a little bit about. I got to tell you, help is on its way. I will say that without any hesitation. Over the course of the last 10 years, I've been working with two different projects. One of them is called Helios Medical Technologies, which is a neuromodulation device that just received FDA approval on Friday, FDA
Right.
clearance on Friday, to help people who have MS with their balance and gait here in the United States. But this device already received FDA approval in Canada for traumatic brain injury, and they are treating soldiers, sailors, airmen, Coast Guards, Marines in Canada right now. Hopefully, over the course of the next year, the device will gain FDA approval here in the United States for TBI also. I'm
Okay.
also working on a project that I told you about, which is called RTM, which is
Right.
a reconsolidation of traumatic memories, which is one of only two protocols in the world that has now been written and actually peer-reviewed studied because it is a cure for PTSD.
Beautiful.
I'm working as hard as you are to try to get this out there as quickly as we possibly can to do what you said. The most
Mhm.
important thing in life is not what we can do for ourselves, it's what we can do for others, and the more we do things for others, I think that's really what the legacy of life is all about. And,
Mhm.
if my final day rings and I know that I've been able to help better the lives of people who suffer from an illness that I suffer from, or
Mhm.
I'm able to help save the lives of one of those 22 veterans a day that's taken theirs, ah,
It's You're gonna cringe when you see the numbers for 2020.
oh, I know. And I think people don't understand that not only as a society have those numbers gone up, but among our veterans, where we used to talk about 22 a day, those numbers are now in the 30s a day. And those are the people who have paid the most dividend for all of us to at least act like we live free right now.
Yep.
And it's no longer time for thank you for your service. It's time to do something about it.
Yep. Yep. And we can't wait for anybody else to do it. We
No,
can't wait for somebody else to come up. That's the reason why I'm here today. I couldn't wait for anybody else.
and we're so glad you are here, and we're so glad that you're doing what you're doing. So keep up the good work, and remember,
Thank
you
you.
always have a home here, free thinker with Montel. Okay,
Thank you. And if you let me tell it, you're my cousin anyway, because we have the same last name.
you got to be. I bet you. I bet you, if we dig down deep, you might
Uh-huh.
that that's true. Telling you, especially you live in DC, had a lot of relatives in that DC area that I didn't know about
Mhm.
until about 5 or 6 years ago. So I bet you we are. There's some.
Somewhere. Mhm.
All right, you take care of yourself. You be well, and I'll see you again.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback, so please send us your comments.